of Zenma. I am Galactus.
There are very few characters in the entire Marvel roster who strike fear into the hearts of readers the way Galactus does. The Devourer of Worlds, who was born from the ashes of a prior cosmos, is an interesting character to say the least. Although we might see him as just another Fantastic Four villain, there's a lot more to him than that. You see, he's a necessity incarnate. He's almost like a balancing force in the cosmic principle of life. So when you have a character this crucial, you gotta wonder what exactly happens if Galactus were to die. Would the entire cosmos become unbalanced? Well, that's what we're gonna find out in today's video, so join us as we take this intergalactic ride. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Galactus? Before we talk about Galactus's death and its aftermath, it's only fair that we discuss his life and understand who and what he actually is. Now, a lot of us remember him as a towering humanoid figure, but that's not really accurate. This is simply a form he takes. Yeah, that's right. He creates a projection of a towering humanoid figure just so that the mortal mind can perceive him. In reality, he's more like a cosmic law than a person. Galactus was introduced in the 48th issue of Fantastic Four, created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the iconic comic duo. After his introduction, Galactus managed to transcend the category of villain in a matter of days. See, the rule of thumb is rather simple for Galactus. He doesn't eat worlds because he's a malicious being or he's looking for excitement. He does it because he's hungry. His hunger is like gravity, impartial and inevitable. So, if Galactus didn't consume planets, the balance of energy in the universe, along with matter, would shift completely, which isn't good at all. This imbalance would result in the cosmos behaving in unpredictable ways that may end up being dangerous for everyone. This keynote about balance has been hinted at repeatedly in Marvel lore, and whether Galactus is removed from the equation or dies, reality itself gets strained from his absence. If we take the time to talk about Galactus's origins, you have to understand that it's the stuff of cosmic myth. Once upon a time, he was Galen of Ta, the last living man of a universe that reached its heat death. The entire fabric of that cosmos started to collapse, and despite that, Galen managed to come out of it, but he didn't come out of it quite right. It seems Galen merged with the sentience of the universe, and this triggered his rebirth as Galactus in the newborn multiverse. This part ascension, part sacrifice is what trapped him in this cyclical role. He was a preserver and a destroyer all in one. In one issue of Fantastic Four, which we'll discuss soon, Galactus ended up exiling himself to a dimensional void, and almost immediately, the consequences of that action were felt across reality. His absence disrupted the meticulously maintained cosmic equilibrium, and that triggered chaos all over the cosmos until he returned. So, in this light, you simply cannot compare Galactus's death the way we look at any mortal or hero's death, because, while a hero's death might be sad, Galactus's death quite literally stops the universe. Imagine waking up one day to find out that gravity simply doesn't work the way it used to. That's what it's like if Galactus were to go away. The entire rules of existence would be rewritten. Plus, another big reason you can't simply kill off Galactus for funsies in Marvel has to be how intricately he's tied to the other cosmic beings in Marvel. Eternity, the Living Tribunal, and Death are all connected to Galactus because, in their eyes, Galactus is too vital a piece to be removed or forgotten. So whenever Galactus falls, which has happened quite a few times, his demise marks the beginning of something a lot worse than you might think. What happens to Galactus after he dies? Now, just for a moment, let's consider the time Galactus died. What happened to him? What happened to his body? That's where things get interesting. His body actually adapts to the observer. We know that sounds crazy, but it's true. This idea came from Marvel Zombies Resurrection, which was a one-shot released in 2019 and then a mini-series released in 2020. In this story, our heroes noticed this strange anomaly drifting in space, so instead of taking any chances, they went to investigate. This anomaly that they found drifting in space was actually Galactus's body, but there was something interesting about it. For the Chitauri race, the body of Galactus looked like it was of their species, but for Reed and Tony, the body looked humanoid, the big guy in the purple helmet that we're more accustomed to. This reality-warping perception isn't just a common trick, it hints at something far stranger than anyone could have ever imagined. Turns out, Galactus's body exists in the quantum superpositional state, effectively staying in a limbo. Then, It simply devolves into a specific form based on who's looking at him. You could explain it away as a side effect of the power cosmic. Power cosmic can easily warp reality, and even in death, that energy doesn't leave Galactus's body. So the power cosmic actually interacts with the psyche of the observer and gives them back their own perceptions. But that's an in-universe explanation. If you consider the out-of-universe implication of this trickery, you'll realize that this little trick actually mirrors the fear, expectations, and myth of those who encounter the body of Galactus. So this is a plot device used to make Galactus scarier than ever. This also goes well with the meta idea that Galactus is a concept that's given shape. Since he is a cosmic constant, even in death, the mind of the beholder forces him into a shape that makes the most sense to them. But that wasn't the only thing we found out about Galactus in Marvel Zombies: Resurrection. The heroes actually ventured inside the massive corpse, trying to understand what caused this death, and they came across something absolutely astounding. Turns out, after death, Galactus's body turned into a ship. Inside the hollowed-out organs and gargantuan ribcage, the heroes found organic tunnels, sprawling corridors, and pockets of breathable air. That sounds kind of like a good thing, right? Well, that's the issue. These hallways and corridors weren't as empty as they appear. After Galactus's death, an infection began in his body. Thanks to that, his body had transformed into a breeding ground for zombie-like creatures, including zombified versions of Marvel's greatest heroes. This issue is without a doubt a mix of Event Horizon, Alien, and Infinity Gauntlet. It's as fascinating as it is scary. Reed Richards and Tony Stark start investigating the corpse, hoping to study the infection and find a cure, but the deeper they go, the more they found things that couldn't be explained away by science. It was pure Lovecraftian horror inside Galactus's body. It kind of reminded us of Nowhere, the decapitated celestial head that's used as a mining colony in Guardians of the Galaxy. While Nowhere was a trade hub, Galactus was like a zombie virus hub. Now, this take on Galactus's death and its aftermath is rather new. Did you know we got to see it happen back in 1996? Remember we mentioned that self-exile earlier? Yeah, that took place in the 414th issue of Fantastic Four. So, in this issue, Galactus went inside a dimensional void, leaving his role as a check against overpopulation and uncontrolled planetary energy accumulation empty. So, as you can guess, the universe immediately tipped into chaos, and the reaction was completely violent. He eventually returned, but it wasn't exactly a peaceful restoration. It was a ravenous and destabilizing force. We were also introduced to Hyperstorm, the main villain of the story. Hyperstorm took advantage of the situation and turned this cosmic imbalance into a weapon. Even though this issue was nothing like the alternate universe of Marvel Zombies: Resurrection, this issue clearly conveyed Galactus's position in the Marvel Universe. He was one of the main pillars that held everything together. We saw this theme return in the 6th volume of Thor, which was released in 2020. In this series, Thor, who was the newly crowned Allfather of Asgard, was warned by Black Winter that something catastrophic was coming their way. Now, to combat it, Galactus made Thor his herald, but in a cool twist, Thor kills Galactus and uses his death to win against Black Winter. While that was a win, the joy soon ends when we see Galactus's body crash into Asgard. Not only that, thanks to his death, the cosmic balance was destabilized entirely, and now the door for Black Winter's return was wide open. In Asgard, the body of Galactus became an object of curiosity and suspicion. Eventually, the hollowed-out corpse became a part of the Asgardian architecture and was turned into a monument. The Reckoning War, for those not familiar, was a multiversal conflict that got everyone from Marvel's cosmic hierarchy in it, treated Galactus's body as a trophy and a strategic point. Even though Galactus was dead, the power cosmic in his body was still strong, so the warring factions on both sides wanted to wage war on the surface, hoping to get a boost from the residual powers. This is a recurring theme in Marvel. The bodies of dead gods and cosmic beings have often been central to the conflict. While the Celestials always left behind valuable matter and energy, Galactus left behind more than just that. His very corpse had enough power to weaponize it. His body still carried the knowledge that may be unknown to even the best of the very best. His armor carried machinery that no one had ever seen before. Whether it's a ship, a mutated vision, or a cosmic war trophy, Galactus's corpse is a character in its own right. And even after the man has fallen, the body somehow carries on shaping the universe in his behest, which is a testament to just how important Galactic is to the overall picture. The horrifying fallout and corruption of Galactus's body. The best way to understand the corruption of Galactus's body is by looking into the events of Marvel Zombies: Resurrection. In this comic arc, we see Galactus being killed by an infection, but it's no mere pathogen, it's something of a cosmic proportion. And Like most infections, this turned him into a carrier. This cosmic plague ended up spreading from him, and oh boy, it ended up affecting some of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. We doubt that comes as too much of a surprise. After all, this infection bested Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds. When alive, his body and hunger preserved the cosmic balance of the world, and in death, his hunger somehow managed to mutate into something else entirely. All the infected heroes who were once paragons of virtue were now forced to perform the same thing Galactus used to do. They devoured the living. However, they lacked the purpose and order that Galactus brought into the world with his snacks. The X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four entered the corpse and saw what his body had become. His entire body was turned into a husk of what it once was, overtaken by the infection. The visuals of this comic are eerie and definitely aligned with the bio-horror territory. That was the most blasphemous corruption of Galactus's body. Then we had another kind of corruption in Thor 2020, where his body became the reminder of a price that had to be paid to stop the Black Winter. The sheer scale of this body made it hard to ignore, and it soon became something of a coveted asset. Even in death, Galactus's corpse wasn't treated with the respect and reverence it deserved. It served as a reminder that even the most fundamental forces that keep everything running can fall, and this site, even though it should act like a deterrent, was anything but. We believe the true horror of Galactus's death doesn't lie in the visuals, though. I mean, yeah, the visuals are definitely out of this world and scary, but it's not the meat and potatoes of the horror. It's the philosophical implication of the corpse that causes the horror. For many, many civilizations across the galaxy, Galactus is an inevitability. He's a constant. Everyone knows that one day Galactus might just appear out of thin air and drain their planet's life force, but they've accepted it. His existence is important. It's like sunrise. You can't do without it, even if the blistering heat is bothersome. But then, one day, when you learn that Galactus is dead, the creeping realization that nothing is truly immortal sinks in. And that's scary. The universe's laws aren't exempt from death, and that makes you realize just how fragile they were to begin with. This existential horror is very reminiscent of Lovecraftian horror, where we suddenly realize that the pillars holding up reality itself are just as fragile as we are, and if Galactus, a being that's been here since before the Big Bang, can die, is there any hope for us? In both the comics we mentioned, the after effects of Galactus's demise linger. In Marvel Zombies' Resurrection, the plague spread beyond his body. In Thor's Black Winter arc, with his dying, there's a power vacuum in the cosmic ecosystem, which might just serve as an invitation to other threats that may have remained dormant otherwise. And this is another reason why Galactus's death is so important. Narratively speaking, usually a character's death brings an end to the story, but Galactus's passing simply starts off story arcs. Cults form to worship his remains. Wars erupt over them. Survivors flee from whatever came out of his body, while scientists try to dismantle his remains and study them in the hopes of learning the secrets of his body. So, the Devourer's influence on the people around him extends long beyond his lifetime. Galactus's rebirth, resurrection, and reuse, repurposing the cosmic being. Death is final for most beings in the Marvel Universe, just ask Uncle Ben, but for Galactus, it's just an intermission. His existence is so crucial to the entire fabric of reality that there's no way the universe would be able to function without his presence, so every time Galactus falls, he comes back again, sometimes due to some intentional intervention, sometimes through meddling of other cosmic powers, and sometimes simply because it's just his nature. His rebirth, demise, and existence work in a cyclical fashion. All of these stages are inevitable, and this cycle too can be exploited for good or bad. Let me explain. In a lot of cases, Galactus's death is not total annihilation. It's more like a state of dormancy. For example, in the 414th issue of Fantastic Four, his self-imposed exile was for self-termination purposes. However, this plan wasn't entirely foolproof. In fact, there was this weakened state of his that was left outside while his body remained inert. This was more than enough to bring him back. That way, dead Galactus doesn't always mean gone Galactus. Just like a star waiting in its red giant phase, Galactus too was waiting for conditions to come back again. In these kinds of cases, with the right energy source or the wrong opportunist, the sleeping devourer might just wake up, and this is why his corpse is just as dangerous as his awake self. When he's not being awakened by accident, most of the time, Galactus is resurrected by artifacts or cosmic anomalies like Infinity Stones or Macran crystals. They reignite his essence, and while doing so, they also reshape him. Sometimes he's stronger than before, sometimes he's more unstable than before, and occasionally, because of all of that, his entire purpose changes. Let's take a look at Galactus the Devourer, which came out in 1999. In that 6-issue miniseries, we saw the Silver Surfer drain Galactus of his energy, and this implied that Galactus was no more, but instead of being gone completely, Galactus became a sentient star, a new celestial body with his awareness. This was a shift in his form, which not only gave us a new meaning of what death means for Galactus, but also set the stage for Abraxas's entry. For those who don't know, Abraxas was a multiversal entity who was supposed to come in Galactus's absence. So, in a way, you could say that death for Galactus not only changes the being, but also acts as a gateway to a new kind of horrifying threat. By this point, everyone in the Marvel Universe knew that Galactus was a cosmic being who definitely deserved their attention, and villains knew that Galactus's body was a prize. His armor had technology beyond our comprehension. His body had answers in it to questions that people haven't even thought of yet. Plus, he wields the power cosmic, which fills every cell of his body. So, of course, villains were after him. In some storylines, we've seen factions trying to inhabit Galactus's body, repurposing it as gravitational weaponry. But then, as we've mentioned before, as cool as it would be to use Galactus's body as your ship while you face off against the heroes, you also risk triggering Galactus's return, which the villains have experienced several times when they tried to exploit him. But that doesn't mean that Galactus has always been targeted for villainous purposes. We've had moments where heroes have tried to turn his remains for noble causes. Fans have theorized that Galactus's body could house entire civilizations, so maybe the heroes could consider using his remains like that. But then again, there's also a moral dilemma associated with those actions. By using Galactus's body like that, the heroes would risk desecrating the body of someone who's considered a god by a lot of people around the cosmos. Plus, there's always lingering trace amounts of power cosmic in his body, which definitely aren't good for any long-term habitation plans. Plus, you also run the risk of accidentally triggering his reawakening, which would immediately turn this safe space into a death trap. Because that's what Galactus's body is, really. It's a trap, especially for those who are greedy or curious enough to seek it out. This allows us to explore interesting arcs where characters who have enough curiosity or hubris to understand Galactus's powers go and risk it all just to experience his remains in person. So, even though Galactus's body can be a lot of things, a weapon, a sanctuary, or something in the middle, the most important thing to remember about him is that his death too follows cosmic rules. Renewal through destruction is the rule of thumb for the cosmos, and Galactus follows that rule. His death clears the stage for something bigger and greater. Sometimes it's for his own return, sometimes it's an even greater threat. And every time we see this cycle take place, one question gets brought up over and over again. Is the universe safer with Galactus alive and feeding, or is it better off without him, even though it might just end up in chaos? Why Galactus's corpse matters so much. Galactus's body matters a lot in the Marvel Universe for many reasons. First of all, it's got the power cosmic. Even in trace amounts, this infinite energy source that fueled his existence and empowered all of his heralds is too much for us mere mortals. And unlike other cosmic artifacts, it can't be stolen or destroyed. So, if anyone comes across a piece of Galactus's body, they'd be able to, at least in theory, tap into the power cosmic and approach godhood. They could do anything, from energy projection to faster-than-light travel, to matter manipulation, and more. The problem is, though, the power cosmic is not the most stable form of energy out there, and without Galactus's mind controlling it and keeping it in check, the energy behaves unpredictably. So, in a lot of stories, when people attempt to harness that power, they end up with reality warping or just explosions at a catastrophic level as side effects. Because of this, the body of Galactus is almost like a ticking time bomb. Secondly, just like the Celestials, Galactus is tied to the structure of the universe, so his body produces a relic unlike any other once he dies. For many civilizations, his body is a sacred object, while scientists like Reed Richards look at his body as a mystery waiting to be unraveled. This tension, felt between the two perspectives I've mentioned, has led to many conflicts after Galactus's death. Some want to protect his remains because they believe tampering with them will result in divine wrath, while others want to possess the body and utilize it for their gain. This leads to several brutal wars. Given how big Galactus's body is, each part of the body is like a territory to be used and won by a faction. In cosmic battles, owning the corpse of Galactus can symbolize dominance in history. We saw how these kind of symbols quickly become rallying points in wars in the Reckoning War. This leads to psychological warfare, which is hard to ignore. Another huge factor in why Galactus's body is so important is that his brain and genetic structure could just hold the secrets to the origins of the universe itself. Since his memory spans past the creation of the current universe and the one before it, If we could tap into it, we could, in theory, know how he may have survived the death of the cosmos last time. This knowledge would be useful when this universe meets its eventual end and people need to survive, but to gain that knowledge, you'd have to delve deep into his corpse, and as we established, it's not a great idea. Galactus's body lures both villains and heroes to it. While heroes may seek it out for noble reasons like keeping it safe or preserving it, villains openly accept how they're going to use it for their own conquest. However, as tempting as it may be, the body of Galactus will always push the people who come near it beyond their limits. He keeps shaping events even though he's gone, because ultimately, he's a story engine for the Marvel Universe. Writers and readers both know that with Galactus gone, something big is headed their way, and it's about time they got prepared for it. Marvelous verdict! Galactus is the Devourer of Worlds, yes, but more than that, he's also an idea, a necessity. He's the one living constant of the Marvel Universe. When he dies, it's never just a simple plot twist introduced for the sake of surprise. There's something deeper, more universal happening in the background that we're just not seeing. He remains at the epicenter of everything that happens after his death because his involvement with the very universe is at a very fundamental level. So you could go on a limb and say that Galactus is a force that's too great to completely vanquish. Let us know what you guys think about Galactus and why you think his body is important in the Marvel Universe even after his death in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.